In every problem that you do, you get to decide which way is positive and which way is negative. So for this example, that way is the positive direction, and to the left, the negative direction. Anything pointed that way is positive, and anything pointed that way is negative. Let's briefly talk about the direction and the sign of an acceleration. Here I decided that to the right is positive and to the left is negative. Remember, acceleration is a vector, so it has a direction. So you've got to be direct about the direction of your acceleration. You could have called that way positive and that way negative. It's completely up to you. So whatever you choose, just make sure you stick with it for the whole problem. So whichever way you decide is positive, if the acceleration points in that positive direction, then it's a positive acceleration. And whatever way you decide it is negative, if the acceleration points in the negative direction, then it's a negative acceleration. So an object that's moving and has an acceleration, how do you determine whether that object is speeding up or slowing down? Well, here's how. This is a super important concept that can be pretty confusing. So pay attention closely and you will accelerate at this. So oftentimes when people see a negative acceleration, they automatically think that the object is slowing down, decelerating. And that's definitely not always the case at all. A negative acceleration does not mean slowing down. When is an accelerating object speeding up? An object speeds up when the acceleration is pointed in the same direction as the speed or the velocity. For example, if an object has a positive velocity, meaning a speed pointed in the positive direction, and the object is moving in the positive direction, and the acceleration also points in the positive direction, then this object is speeding up. The acceleration is pointed in the same direction as the speed. So, because both the acceleration and the speed are pointed in the same direction, the object is speeding up. In this case, the object is speeding up in the positive direction. Their velocity is getting more and more positive. Now, what if the object is moving in the negative direction? Has a negative velocity. Well, if it has a negative acceleration, meaning the acceleration is pointed in the negative direction, then the velocity and the acceleration are both negative, they're both pointed in the same direction, so the object is also speeding up. But in this case, the object is speeding up in the negative direction. So either of these cases are an example of an object speeding up. In the first case, that was in the positive direction, and in the second case, that was in the negative direction. So here, look, you have a negative acceleration, but the object is speeding up. Now, how do we know when an object that's accelerating is slowing down? Well, if for an object that's speeding up, the velocity and the acceleration have to be pointed in the same direction, then for an object that's slowing down, the acceleration is going to be pointed in the opposite direction to the velocity. So if an object was moving like this in the positive direction with a positive velocity, and the acceleration was pointed in the opposite direction, a negative acceleration, then this object is slowing down because the velocity is positive, but the acceleration is negative, which means they're pointed in opposite directions. The object is slowing down. And finally, if an object is moving in the negative direction with a negative velocity, and the acceleration is pointed in the positive direction, then again, the acceleration is pointed in the opposite direction to which the object is moving, and so the object is going to be slowing down. Now, this is all horizontal stuff. Does anything change when it's vertical? Haha, no, it doesn't. I just rotated my paper to make everything in the vertical direction, and as you can see, nothing changed. If we're talking about vertical stuff, everything's the same. If the direction of the acceleration points in the same direction that the object is moving, then the object is speeding up. And if the acceleration is pointed in the opposite direction to the direction that the object is moving, then the object is slowing down.